My name is Daniel McCarthy. You might have known me as the quiet guy on the corner lot, the one who kept his lawn a little too green and his opinions to himself. I'm a veteran, a father, and the third generation to own the land my house sits on. When I bought this place, I imagined peace, a quiet cul-de-sac where my wife and I could watch the sunset without trouble. But trouble found us anyway, and in my case, it wore pearls, carried a laminated clipboard, and went by the title of HOA president. Her name was Karen. Karen wasn't just a nuisance, she was a dictator of domesticity. Fines, threats, endless passive-aggressive letters about the precise shade of my paint or the unacceptable height of my ornamental grass. For years, I fought the silent war in this suburban battlefield. Out there, it wasn't bullets or bombs, it was bylaws and board meetings. Karen was the general of that conflict, and her power was absolute, fed by the compliance and fear of every resident. One evening, I looked across the dinner table. My wife had worry lines that weren't there a decade ago. My youngest son asked why the lady next door was always yelling at us. That night, I knew enough was enough. I had served my country overseas, but nothing prepared me for the anxiety of living under Karen's iron-fisted oversight. We needed out. I started the process quietly, secretly. I found a realtor, scoped out properties outside the suffocating reach of any HOA, and began making calls. It felt less like moving house and more like planning a meticulous escape from a polo-shirted prison. When I told my wife the plan, a wave of profound relief washed over her. "Finally," she whispered, as though afraid Karen might hear her through the walls. For the first time in years, I saw hope flicker in her eyes. The good neighbors, the tired ones, would pull me aside and whisper, "If you can get out, Daniel, do it. Don't look back." They looked like prisoners serving life sentences under Karen's endless scrutiny. The morning of the move, I felt a lightness I hadn't felt since before I bought the house. Peace. The truck was loaded, the contract was signed, the address was forwarded. I even caught a small knowing smile when I saw Karen's blinds twitch. She had seen the moving truck, and I knew what she was thinking. She was losing control. That's what all this was about, not community standards or property values. It was about pure, unadulterated power. Karen thrived on holding her neighbors hostage to her ego. Watching me pack my life into boxes was like watching her kingdom crumble. She tried to stop me with words first. The day before, she'd slid a nastygram under my door, an urgent notice claiming I couldn't relocate without board approval. I crumpled the paper, tossed it in the trash, and taped the deed to the front door instead. My family owned this property, free and clear. No board could chain us here. But the sight of the truck broke her. Her face appeared on her porch, twisted and pale with fury. She shrieked across the street, "You can't just leave, you owe the community thousands in unpaid fines." I didn't even bother to respond. My lawyer had already shredded her fabricated fines months ago. They were smoke, and she knew it. Then she stormed. She came charging across the cul-de-sac, papers clutched in her hands like weapons. She shouted about abandonment, about breach of contract, about seeing me in court. Her voice cracked with genuine desperation. She wasn't fighting for the community, she was fighting for relevance. I leaned against the moving truck, calm as a statue, and let her scream. I let her spit every insult and threat she had practiced. Then I looked her dead in the eye and said, "Karen, you don't own me, you never did." That's when she snapped. Her face went fire engine red, veins bulging in her neck. She pulled out her phone, fingers trembling with rage, and I knew exactly what she was about to do, the infamous 911. Neighbors gathered, phones turned on, capturing every second. They were tired too, and they wanted a front row seat to the moment Karen finally went too far. "Yes, this is the president of the Briarwood HOA," her voice cut through the neighborhood, shrill and frantic. "We have an active crime in progress. A homeowner is illegally vacating their property, disrupting community order and refusing lawful directives. We need officers dispatched immediately." She was painting me as a criminal, turning a quiet move into a spectacle and spinning lies with the confidence of someone who practiced her drama in the mirror. She even shrieked that I was hostile, aggressive, and threatening the board. I didn't flinch. I just pulled out my own phone and started recording her. Finally, she slammed the phone shut, folding her arms with smug satisfaction. "Send officers now, he's a danger to this entire community," she ended with a flourish. She truly believed the cavalry was coming for me. "That's another violation," she barked at my movers who had kept working. "Failing to comply with board authority, I'll double the fine." I just shook my head. "Karen, this land belongs to me. I don't need your permission slip to leave." She stomped closer, so close I could smell the bitterness. "You can't walk away. This community relies on structure. Without me, this place would fall apart." There it was, the truth, her belief that she was indispensable. the loss of her HOA crown was driving her insane. She frantically flipped through her dreaded 3-ring binder looking for a forgotten clause that could save her. Here, Section 9, Disruption of Community Order. You're disrupting, Daniel. You'll pay every dime and you'll never sell this house. I smiled. Karen, I already sold it. Her mouth dropped open. The crowd chuckled. That's impossible. The board didn't approve. I cut her off. The board doesn't approve my life. They don't own my freedom. Her voice hit a shriek. You'll never get away with this. And right then, the distant, unmistakable wail of a police siren grew louder. Karen froze, then her lips curled into a sickening, triumphant smile. Finally, she hissed. She straightened her blouse, tried to look composed, and waited for her victory. She pointed at me, ready to deliver her grand speech to the arresting officers. The patrol car turned onto our street, lights flashing red and blue, painting the perfectly manicured houses in emergency colors. It pulled to the curb and Karen strutted toward it, binder clutched like a royal decree. There he is, she shouted before the officer even stepped out. That's the one, arrest him immediately. The driver's side door opened. A tall, fit officer stepped out slowly, taking in the scene, the moving truck, the gathering neighbors with their cameras, and the frantic woman pointing. Karen pressed herself against the car door, yapping. Officer, this man is a menace to our HOA. He's violating our bylaws, abandoning property. Filming me without consent, and he owes thousands in unpaid fines. You must arrest him right now. The officer raised a calm hand to silence her. Ma'am, step back, we'll handle this. Karen huffed but stepped aside, her eyes locked on me, her smug grin whispering, I've got you now. The officer on the passenger side leaned against the car, scanning the scene. He pulled out his radio and spoke a few words I couldn't hear. Then he looked directly at Karen and said, Actually, ma'am, another unit is on the way. Someone specifically requested to respond to this call. Karen's eyes lit up. Backup reinforcements, she thought, proof that the law bent to her will. I handed the first officer my ID, the deed, and the moving permit. He scanned them all. Everything looks in order, sir, he muttered. Karen jumped back in. Backup, good, he's dangerous, he's been harassing me, you'll need more officers to restrain him. The other officer finally spoke up. Ma'am, HOA law isn't criminal law. The crowd chuckled. Karen's face went white but she recovered quickly, snapping, It should be. If you don't arrest him, I will file a citizen's arrest myself. I smiled, shaking my head. Be careful what you wish for, Karen. And then, the sound of the second engine rumbled down the street. The second patrol car turned the corner, lights flashing, siren briefly chirping before cutting off. Karen froze, then she smoothed her hair, straightened her shoulders, and prepared for her grand finale. She strutted forward, chin high, whispering, finally, he's going down. The driver's door of the second patrol car swung open and the officer stepped out. He was older, with a calm, practiced authority. He didn't look at Karen, he looked directly at me. And I watched as Karen's triumphant, sickly sweet smile dissolved into pure, frozen horror. Because the officer who stepped out of that second car wasn't just a random member of the police force, he was my son. He took a slow, deliberate walk past the petrified Karen and I met his eyes. He gave me the smallest, almost imperceptible wink, the same wink he used to give me when he knew he was about to win a baseball game. He stopped in front of Karen, who was now trembling, clutching her useless binder to her chest. She couldn't speak, she could only stare. My son, the police officer, looked down at her and said, in a low, even voice that carried perfectly across the quiet street, Ma'am, you called 911 alleging criminal activity and threatening the safety of a resident. I am here to respond. For the record, the homeowner you're attempting to restrain is my father, Daniel McCarthy, and he is not in violation of any criminal law. He is legally moving out of a property he owns. He paused, letting the silence scream across the neighborhood. The neighbors were gasping, the cameras were rolling, and Karen was a statue carved from pure, mortified disbelief. Furthermore, my son continued, his voice hardening, I have been aware of your continuous pattern of harassment and malicious threat of fines against my parents for years. This is not a dispute over community standards. This is a frivolous use of emergency services, and based on the recording my father just provided, it also involves potential false reports and threats of unlawful confinement, specifically regarding the attempted citizen's arrest. He looked her dead in the eye. Karen, you are disrupting a legal, private move. You are done here, step away from the vehicle. If you do not leave the immediate area now, you will be arrested for obstruction and for the misuse of the 911 emergency system. Understood? Karen didn't move, she didn't speak. Her eyes darted from my son's face to mine, the realization crashing down on her like a tidal wave. She hadn't called the law to protect her kingdom, she had called my family to dismantle it. She had summoned the very person with the actual authority to shut her down. She dropped the binder. It hit the asphalt with a pathetic thud, and the pages, her precious rules and regulations, scattered in the small breeze. She turned and without a word stumbled back across the cul-de-sac and disappeared into her house, pulling the door shut behind her with a weak, defeated click. My son looked at me, a confident smirk replacing the serious mask. "You okay, Dad?" I chuckled, something deep and genuine. "Never better, son, never better." He gave a professional nod to the other officers who were already packing up their gear, shaking their heads. Then he looked at my wife, who was now crying tears of relief and pride on the porch. "See you at the new place, Mom. Drive safe." He got back into his cruiser, flashed his lights once and drove away. The neighbors erupted in cheers. The movers got back to work loading the last boxes into the truck. Karen's house remained silent. As I climbed into the driver's seat of my car, ready to leave that miserable, petty kingdom for good, I looked at the spot where the binder had fallen. The pages fluttered in the wind. I didn't even bother to pick them up. The last thing I did was turn the ignition, put the car in drive, and leave that community and Karen in the rearview mirror exactly where they belonged. I was free.